My advice, self-taught programmers, listen up. I think that unless you have someone teaching you programming, the best way to learn programming is to be self-taught. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but even like most of the universities don't really teach you programming. So for example, I went and got myself a a computer science degree. And during that degree, while we did do some coding, most of the time it was in a team. And when you're working in a team, while yes, you can be proactive in a team, so you take the lead, you talk, or you just lay back and do nothing. And so most of the time in a team, there's a couple of people that are proactive, and the rest, at least in university, they don't really care. They sit there, they talk. I've had people in my team that watched League of Legends while we were programming. Which, you know, was fine. I didn't really care. I wanted to do the programming. I had fun. And I'm pretty sure this guy had fun too, whatever he was watching. And so even if you do that, which I did, you're still not learning, in my opinion, you're still not learning a lot in a traditional university, because you would need to program literally almost every day to have some sort of consistency, to be to improve and get better. That's the most important part. Routine, yes, because you're not getting, well, you do learn something, but you forget most of the things if you stop programming after the project is over, which in university, at least for us in Germany, when you go to a general university, you program sometimes, and most of the other time you do theoretical stuff. So the only way I became a programmer, even after I've done my bachelor's degrees, I did it like in the normal time frame that you do that in. I never had to repeat a single test. I always passed every test that I did. I was terrible. And so the only way I learned programming was to self-teach to teach myself to do it. And that was through consistency. I told myself I'm gonna program every day for at least 10-15 minutes, and I would do that every day. I didn't want to do it. I would look at the clock and I would sit down for 10-15 minutes actually writing some code. Not watching a YouTube video, then pretending I learned something because I watched a YouTube video about something and then moved on. No, I actually sat down, put out the editor, Visual Studio Code in my case, typed in some code that I wanted to type in or needed to type in, you know, whether that be repeating a tutorial or working on something new that I've never done before. And then after that, I called myself, I pat myself on the back. It's like, good job, Cakez, you did it today. And then I could do whatever I wanted. And that's how I learned to code. And I know how to code, okay? I can do an entire game in C++. Yes. With sound. And some other cool stuff. Yeah. And that's not an easy task. One of the hardest tasks you can do, to write an engine in a game in C++. But let's see, what does he have? Listen up, my advice. I wonder what type of advice you can give. If I were to give advice, I think the number one thing is to be consistent. Force yourself to work for 10-15 minutes every day. Build a habit. Once you have built a habit, you will more likely stick with programming or whatever project you want to work on. Game, website, some application that does video encoding. Don't know, you know, whatever you're into. And then you will stick with this. And don't feel bad about not making much progress. You should feel good about yourself if you actually did something, whether that is 1 line of code or 10 line of code, whether that is 10 minutes or 10 hours. Doesn't matter, because you were not going to code 10 hours every day. Absolutely not.
One of the most controversial topics in programming has always been the college degree. There's traditional education, and then there's self-taught
See, he went into the same problems that I went into, Interesting.
Programming. And in past videos, I've expressed my opinion on college degrees and how important they are for software engineing roles.
Yeah, they
but
are.
I haven't specifically spoken.
So, like, that's the issue, right? They require you to have a college degree, but you don't learn much in the college. So you're wasting money going to college, and you're not getting enough out of it. At least in a more theoretical college, which, if you are young, obviously you think that's good. Well, it's on you, but you're young. At least as a teenager, I didn't know what the fuck I was gonna do, so I just went there and thought I would learn some programming.
Talking about self-taught programming because I did go the traditional education route. But in this video...
Wait, so is it okay if I make very little progress in 10 hours? Yeah, of course. And you spend time thinking about coding and you did some coding, let's say coding, right? Could be anything. Of course, you worked. You did something. Now, you will probably feel bad about not making much progress, but that's what the next day is for. And the day after that. So, for example, yesterday we worked on this little menu right here. And today we finalized it. This menu completely changed today. And I left this menu in a terrible state yesterday because I didn't know what to do. We didn't make any progress on it. If anything, we made backwards progress. But that's just what happens. Important is to come back. They want to know if you can push through. That's what the degree is for. The degree, in my opinion, a bachelor's degree is to teach you to learn by yourself. And it could be any subject, anything that you learn there. It doesn't matter. It teaches you to hold yourself accountable, that you pass the tests, that you go to university, you go to the lectures, and you basically start becoming an adult. You take more responsibility to do these things. That's what I see university is for. But obviously there are universities that teach very good stuff too. Obviously they teach stuff. I learned a lot of math too, which I forgot, but yes.
I have someone who didn't. My friend Kenny Gunderman is in town, and he's a self-taught programmer who works as a software engineer, and he's also a YouTuber. So I had him come over so that I can make a video specifically about self-taught programming. I have a lot of strong opinions on this topic, but since I come from a traditional education background, I did want to get that other perspective from an actual self-taught.
So I don't think you can call yourself self-taught only if you have no bachelor's degree, because I call myself a self-taught programmer even with a bachelor's degree in computer science, because I didn't learn much programming in computer science. I basically learned almost nothing. I did learn some data structures and some theoreticals, but you never do. Yeah, you never do. So you can still be self-taught even if you have a computer science degree.
Programmer. So I'm going to share my opinions and advice first, and then we'll cut to his opinions and advice later on in the video. But before we do that, I do want to mention the fitting sponsor for this video, which is Zero to Mastery. Zero to Mastery is a platform with dozens of courses and online resources to help people learn how to code and then get hired in the tech industry.
I guess I'm going to skip that.
All right, so coming from a traditional education background, my advice has always been, is college great? Yes. Do you need it? Absolutely not. Now, of course, that's a little bit of a generalization because there are programming jobs out there that do require a college degree. When it comes to advice on this, like should you go the traditional education route versus self-taught programming route, it is really specific to you as a person. But since this is YouTube and I'm speaking to a lot of you here, I'm going to generalize and say that most programming jobs nowadays do not require a college degree.
Let's see. Guys, where would you like to program if you wanted to make a game? Which game company would you like to join if you were to join a game company? Valve? Do they have open slots? Riot, Valve Corporation. How do we find the jobs? We make games, Steam and hardware. Join us. We are a typical company. So you want to do game design? We are always hiring. We hire people with broad skill sets who also exhibit deep expertise. While nobody at Valve has a job title, we do have certain fields that we're always looking to hire in. Level designer. Level designer. Let's say you want to be a level designer. We are always looking. Level designers, Valve, across, blah, blah, blah. Level designers help create. It's an entertainment. Values, entertainment company, deliver. We hire people with broad skill sets who also exhibit expertise. We read that. Level designers at Valve contribute a wide variety. We participate in design sessions to create outlines of game experience. We build game worlds in 3D and scripting, gameplay, story elements. We work on dynamic blah 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 animation. Do you prefer to collaborate with peers to define work rather than simply follow? When applying, include the recent examples of levels or environment you have made. Good. So you can click on apply now. Then you set your name, your email address, what you would like to, how do you discover this opportunity? And then attach documents. GGG. Okay, Grinding Gear Games. Jobs. Can we find, we're currently hiring in all roles. Grinding Gear Games. That's a bit wide. Let me change that. Grinding Gear Games is looking to hire VFX artists and C++ engine programmers. There you go, guys. C++. Hell yeah. We're offering. Let's go to the C++ programmer. We are looking for a C++ engine programmers. That's me! Giga company, yeah, to work on our in-house engines and tools. Our engine is specific to Path of Exile on an attempt to solve the problems uniquely generated by the dynamic gameplay that we support while taking advantage of the opportunities granted by our fixed camera perspective. We are seeking someone with extreme knowledge of modern... I mean, I have C++, but okay, extremely strong knowledge of at least one modern graphics API. I know good amount of Vulkan and OpenGL. Extreme, yeah, DirectX or Vulkan. There are 3 or more years of engine development. I actually have this. I've been trying to make a C++ game for over 3 years now. Or graphics programming experience. A bachelor's degree in computer science. Huh. Software engineering or equivalent. There we go. That's what we were searching for. So they do want this. They do want this. It's always optional. Yeah, I guess it's optional. C++ code samples required. Must be willing to complete a technical interview if requested to do so. I would still apply. Tell them you're happy to learn. Yeah, sure, of course. Like, let's say I was gonna look for a job right now. I would apply and say, I'm happy to learn. I mostly program in C like C++, not in C++ modern wise, but I'm happy to learn. Equivalent could be anything, yeah, but still, a bachelor's degree looks like, you know, they want.
The past few years, people have started to place a lot of value on self-learning. And since everybody moved to online and people have developed all of these resources and courses, people understand how easy it is to self-learn. And there's absolutely no way that anybody...
But I don't think just following a course online is the same thing as self-learning, to be honest. It is, because the course is teaching you something, but I feel like you're really only starting to learn when you're going out of your way to create something new or something that you want to do. I think that's when you start to learn for real. So I feel like that is actually self-learning rather than just following a tutorial. I think a tutorial is like the first step on your way to self-learn, but you self-learn when you do something new that you want to do.
You can say nowadays that a tradition...
Because like you could go to, what is it called? You could go to Udemy and do this course and now you have this placard. But that doesn't mean that you know this stuff. You have done it once and you probably forgot most of the things because, well, if someone tells you something, it is not as ingrained in your brain as if you just do it yourself and you figure it out yourself. It's a huge difference. Because there's emotion associated with you uncovering something or making a mistake, because you will put yourself down for the mistake and you will rise yourself up, you will pat yourself on the back for doing something good. That ingrains itself stronger in your brain than if you just let someone teach you.
Education is necessarily more valuable than a self-taught education. The same information that you will be learning in traditional education, you can teach yourself. That information is out there for everybody to learn. It's more dependent on you as a person and what environment you want to put yourself into so that you can learn this stuff in the best way possible. College is great, right? You get to learn alongside peers and develop your skills and learn from your peers and instructors who have different knowledge and different things. And you get face-to-face interaction with people, which makes communicating really easy.
Nah, I'm not really a face-to-face person. Like I'm more of an introvert, but it's true. Like I had a very smart guy with me who would always explain me everything. And he was never mad or anything. He always looked for a better way to explain me something if I didn't understood what the fuck was going on. And he is, in my opinion, like one of the smartest people I know. That guy's a chat. No, it's not.
For learning and retaining all of this information. Okay. However, this doesn't necessarily mean it's the best environment for learning. First of all, it's tough to generally say that college computer science is a great thing to go into, considering every computer science program at every different university or college is completely different. The instructors will be different, the people will be different.
I don't agree with this. I'm pretty sure you all have learned about flowcharts. I'm pretty sure all of you have learned about data structures. You have learned most likely a programming language. I'm pretty sure there was a section about C and C++ in there, but it wasn't very long. I'm pretty sure it's mostly the same everywhere. Yeah.
The environment will be different.
But it's just not enough.
the material will be different. And when you're enrolled in a program in college and you're having a tough time learning from an instructor, the way to change your instructor would be to drop the class or switch the class or maybe switch universities altogether into a different program. Whereas if you're self-teaching and you're trying to learn something and you have a certain resource that isn't doing it for you, you could switch, take a different course, learn from a different online instructor, and maybe learn it from someone else that easily. I just don't necessarily think there's any right way for you to learn. Just because you went to college doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to know more or be any better of a programmer than somebody who's self-taught. And just because you're self-taught.
No, I think someone who's self-taught is always going to be more knowledgeable than someone that goes to university, at least when it comes to coding, because the university is not gonna make you code more than you do yourself. If you really wanna self-teach you and you stick to it, you're gonna do way more coding than someone that just goes to university and learns there. Like, it just happens automatically. There will be days where you code all day.
Doesn't mean you know any better or are going to be any better of a programmer than somebody that went.
Yeah, bro, someone who's serious about it and both self-teaches and attends university is going to be better. Exactly. So someone who's really serious about it attends university and teaches himself. Yes. But we're talking about the guy that only goes to university to learn and the guy that only teaches himself. The guy that teaches himself will be much better than the guy who's only going to university. 100%.
To college. Because of societal conventions, people put a lot of value on the college degree. However, I don't know about you guys, but
and how do I know that? Because I did that. I only learned what I was in university.
When I was in college, I remember there were a lot of people partying, sleeping in class, skipping class, and even people cheating. But when it comes to self-taught programming, there's also flaws there. Some people have a tough time learning on their own, whether it's because they can't commit to a schedule of learning and practicing every single day, or because they have comprehension issues and they're the type of learner that needs to ask questions and have face-to-face communication with somebody to actually learn. Generally, to me, it doesn't really matter.
But I think, yeah, I'm that person. I needed to ask questions all the time, but I still managed to do it. I don't think that applies because the more you do it, the better you get at figuring stuff out yourself. Like, even if you're a person that needs to ask questions, you can ask questions online. There's Discord. I've asked questions here. People help me here in the general chat. You can ask questions. I was in the Vulkan Discord for the longest time. I asked a bunch of questions there. I don't know, man. I feel like he's not taking into account, but maybe the video is old. Nah, Discord was around 1 year ago, 100%. So you can ask questions everywhere. I did that up to the point where I would ask too many questions. Yeah.
Which way you choose to learn. Whether you want to go traditional education or self-taught programmer, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you learn and develop your skills, right? Until it comes to the financial commitment. Now, education is extremely valuable, and it's actually considered investing in yourself. There's been a charge for education for forever. Invaluable educational resources can become very pricey, but it's up to you to not make bad financial decisions.
Well, what do you mean
this is
with
extremely
pricey?
important to understand because it's actually considered investing in yourself. There's been a charge for education for forever. Invaluable educational resources can become very pricey, but it's up to you.
I think the most valuable educational resource that you can get is one-on-one coaching with a person that you trust and know that he knows what he's talking about. I don't think there's going to be a single tutorial online once you get to a certain point where you want to do very specific things that can teach you. And even then, like, I think one-on-one is the best.
To not make bad financial decisions. This is extremely important to understand because a lot of people just look to programmers and people that have software engineering roles and see how much money they make and just think, I want to do that. Let me get to there no matter what it takes. I'll do whatever. I'll pay the most money for education and just get me to that point. But you shouldn't just automatically equate an expensive education to a valuable education. And thinking of an education like an investment is really important, right? You could buy a really expensive stock, but maybe it's actually not that valuable. And over time, you're going to...
Actually, in the beginning, I bought myself access to the Hazel engine when I was learning Vulkan because I wanted to know how they did the Vulkan memory management and image uploading and then hot reloading of images. That didn't really work out too well because I didn't understand the code much. But it cost me $9. Yeah.
Lose money for investing in that stock. Well, when you invest in your education, you want a valuable education
that was the last time I spent money on
a
learning.
Return on that investment. So you might pay for your education, but it makes you a lot of money in the long run. You get a successful career out of it, and it's totally worth it. You do not, however, want to pay for an expensive education and then not make a lot of money from it. And this happens to a ton of people when they go to a real...
But how do you know that? Like, how you don't know that? Like, my best advice here is to just not pay anything. Like, you can get everything for free on the internet. And again, explore. Like, just go your own way and figure out stuff yourself. Make the mistakes yourself. You learn to be more efficient by yourself. And for that, then when you do join a company, you're more likely to figure out stuff yourself and not be as reliant on others. Obviously, you still have to work on a team, and that is a key feature that you have to develop, or key, I don't know how you say that in English, key thing that you have to develop. But the more you figure out stuff for yourself, the more you learn that, let's say, programming is not about programming in general, but about solving a problem.
Expensive school,
and solving a problem has nothing to do with the language,
but they don't actually learn that much and develop the skill set they need to have a really successful career and get that return on investment. Instead, you might be stuck with a ton of student debt and no job. This could also happen at something like a boot camp that's extremely expensive, that advertises that you should be able to get a job after 9 weeks, but maybe they don't guarantee it.
Full stack JavaScript,
pay all this money for the boot camp,
51%.
What if you don't get the job after? So unless you're completely fine with wasting money and going into debt, you need to be extremely careful when you're considering the investment for your education. Make sure that you fully understand what you're...
In my opinion, just don't spend any money on education, really. Unless you need to computer. Spend money on the computer, yes. Let's say your keyboard is broken, you need a new keyboard. Like, basically everything that you need to program and use a mouse, that's it, yeah.
Getting yourself into, and what you're going to learn from this education, and what you're going to do with those skills afterwards to get that return on investment. So those are my opinions and advice on self-taught programming versus traditional education.
Now his friend comes online, okay.
But
Let's
since
see.
I'm not actually a self-taught programmer, I'm now going to throw it over to Kenny Gunderman, self-taught programming YouTuber.
So let's talk about ways that you could learn how to code as a self-taught programmer. Now, there's a lot of great material out there online, and a lot of it is actually free. Resources that I've heard a lot of good things about are Free Code Camp, the Odin Project, and then there's a great lecture series by Harvard on YouTube called CS50. You may have heard of it before. But I think it's important to realize when learning how to code, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You can start with Free Code Camp, you could start with the Odin Project, or you could start with the CS50 course, and maybe that just doesn't work out for you. I originally wanted to start learning how to code because I wanted to make mods for the game Minecraft. And when I started, I didn't have a solid structure. I didn't have a thing like the Odin Project or Free Code Camp to guide me. I watched a couple of YouTube tutorials to get my IDE set up in Java, and then I watched a couple tutorials on how to make Minecraft mods. And I think another really important thing to understand is that when you are first learning how to code and you're watching tutorials, the information isn't going to click right away. I remember I was watching these tutorials on how to build these mods, and I was typing out the functions and making the classes, and I didn't understand really how it was working. I was kind of just copying the code and praying that it...
Yeah, and the issue that you have when you start to learn to program as well, that hopefully goes into too, there's too much conflicting information out there that tells you what is good to do and what is not good to do. Have you ever seen those gurus that tell you, oh, don't use this, don't use that, don't use string literals, use std string, you know, use shared pointers instead of normal pointers. Yeah, learn C, learn Vim, learn C++. When I started learning to program, I was so scared to do anything because I didn't want to do anything wrong, the wrong way. And so what ended up happening is, instead of doing some actual coding, I would browse the internet for hours and hours, and I would write down stuff. Multiple pages worth of stuff that is interesting and I should keep in mind, and don't do this and don't do that. I'd literally papers upon papers worth of information. But you know what I didn't have? Like a line of code in my program. Still happening to me, yeah. Hopefully he goes into this. The best thing to do here is to, after you have done your basic tutorials, whether that be in any tutorial is fine, that teaches you the language. It doesn't matter. C++ tutorial, YouTube, Free Code Camp, 4 hours, knock that out on a single day, move on. You just need to know what is possible in the language. Any tutorial works. It doesn't really matter. It just needs to teach you what is possible in the language. And then you can reference this. If you forgot how to do a string, if you forgot how to do a pointer, reference this again. And then you just explore. You do your own thing. And when you get into the habit of Googling too much, Stop it all. Just find the solution yourself. Do it in the most atrocious way possible, but it works. Just make it work somehow.
Would run. But the thing is, if you do that consistently enough and you do that for a long period of time, things just start to click. And I think the best advice that I could give you is that if you want to get better at learning how to code as a self-taught programmer, is you got to keep exploring resources, figure out resources that work well for you, but just don't stop coding. As cliche as that sounds, you really just got to keep coding. You got to keep banging your head against the wall. You got to keep Googling to find answers.
No, I don't agree with this. And I don't agree with banging your head against the wall either. The best thing is to not Google and to find a solution yourself. Ask chat. It's not about being like, I've been programming before I started streaming, bro, you know? I think the best way to do is to just explore, and that means you do your own thing. You learn the most by doing that. You do terrible mistakes. Yeah, keep coding, but try to not use Google as much. Google is like a helper. You know, you don't want to always use the helper. You want to develop your own strength and confidence. And Google can't always help you.
To your bugs, so on and so forth.
AI won't help either, bro. I've seen the results from ChatGPT. Some of the stuff is good, but oftentimes it's just garble.
And once you start getting down the basics, you won't have to rely on a tutorial to actually code. You'll eventually be able to make your own projects without a tutorial, and that is something I highly encourage you to do. Come up with a project idea. It doesn't really matter what the project idea is. Honestly, I think a good place to start would be something like a Twitter clone or a YouTube clone or something of that nature.
A YouTube clone? Bro, that's huge. What the fuck? Maybe web development has gotten easier in the past couple of years. You know, it's been a while since I've done some, but I would have to ask Mr. Prime on that if he would like to make a YouTube clone when he started programming again. Minecraft clone, Microsoft clone. Is it easy to do YouTube? I don't know, man. Maybe it is.
Just come up with an idea. Doesn't have to be unique, but don't follow a tutorial when you're writing it. Start building the project, get stuck, use Google to help guide you, so on and so forth. Yeah. Eventually, you do that enough, you'll build your own.
I think he means only the front end. Yeah, basically displaying videos, clicking on the videos, and then playing the videos, and then maybe adding a like feature and a dislike feature and a comment feature. Yeah, that makes more sense, you know.
Personal projects. Maybe you'll start building more unique projects, and you can build your own developer portfolio. Maybe you host that with GitHub, or maybe you build a website portfolio displaying all your work. But don't expect to go from first.
I would always use Git. The moment you start teaching you to code, put every single project, if you can, put it on Git. Keep it there, not only for someone else, but for yourself. Because you will come back in a couple of years and be proud of what you did. Keep everything you do.
Starting to learn how to code, to building these cool projects and making a portfolio overnight. It can take weeks, months, sometimes even years to get to that level. Once you build your developer portfolio, that's when the exciting part happens, and that's when you can start applying for jobs. But don't be too discouraged if you start applying for jobs and you don't hear back right away. It can oftentimes take hundreds of applications, but the important thing is to be consistent when you apply. Another great piece of advice that I give out is that building your network as a self-taught programmer is important, because oftentimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know when it comes to getting a job. There's many different ways you can network in this digital.
Is that how it is in the United States? I've never had an issue getting a job, and I don't know anyone. Now, I do understand that if you know someone in a company, it is more easy for you to get into that company, especially when it's a big company. That's how it is everywhere, yeah. So like, I wouldn't, like, I guess you can focus on that, but...
Digital age, you can join Discord groups.
Go to the interview with carpal tunnel gloves to show that you are a pro. Yeah, I've been coding for so long, my hands started to hurt. Yes.
You can just find people online, or you can meet up with people in real life and go to tech conferences, talk to the recruiters.
I don't know about you, but I'm a very introverted person. Like, maybe this works for extroverts, but for me, I'm just not into this at all. I don't know about you guys, but I never liked doing that, because I program because I can also sit at home and not have to meet people. But people are nice, of course.
Get their business cards, get their emails, and then reach out to them like that. So build your network. Stay consistent when applying for jobs, but also stay consistent when learning how to code.
All right, so that's pretty much it, guys. I was just making this video to kind of cover on some of these
On the consistency part, I want to reiterate this again. What helped me a lot and what I forced myself in the beginning was to tell myself I'm gonna code every day. I'm gonna make it work somehow, whether that means I need to wake up early before the job that I have to do, which was coding as well. And I told myself I will do at least 15 minutes of coding every day. It doesn't matter what I'm gonna do, but in the very beginning, when I needed to learn how to be consistent, I forced myself sometimes, even though I didn't want to do it. So I started working in terms of time. And then over time, no pun intended, I shifted more towards tasks. So 15 minutes turned into, today I'm going to make this button in my game. When I click the button, it will quit the game. That is a task. I told myself that I will work this task today. If I manage to do this task today, I'm happy. And so I think it's better to work on tasks over long periods of time. But I can see that sometimes in the beginning, a task might be too long for you and you might be too lazy to do that because you have not built a habit yet. The ultimate goal is to build a habit that reinforces you to come back every day.
Very big general coding YouTuber topics. This is one of the ones I haven't really talked about in depth yet. I know a lot of people are learning from different ages and backgrounds, and you all have different crazy stories about traditional education, self-taught programming, getting hired in the tech industry, maybe you didn't get hired. I'd love to see those in the comments below. I always want to read and see what's going on currently in the world. So please drop some comments so I can read from your stories. Maybe you can educate me a little bit. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to connect with me more personally, follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you guys for watching this video. As always, I appreciate all your support, and see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace. Peace. Peace. There you go. There's the video. But how do you measure how well you did? What if the code you wrote was rubbish? I don't know if the code I wrote was rubbish on the day I wrote the code, but I will usually know that the code was rubbish when I come back to it. But it doesn't matter ultimately, because let's say we're talking about a game. Think about Undertale. I want you to take a look at these two images, okay? Take a look at this right here. How many people have bought the game, and look at the percentage of players that have played the game, how much of them like the game. And then take a look at this right here and read the code. And then think again whether it is important to write perfect code or not. Or whether it is important to have code work so that the player... Now we're talking about games. So that the player can enjoy a good game. So maybe this takes away some of your feelings towards maybe not having the best code. Burn that code with fire. He couldn't implement this feature, so I would say it's kind of important. The point is that he didn't know how to properly code, yet he managed to make an entire game, and it was insanely successful.